Sarofsky gets physical with the Goosebumps Season 2 title sequence, Rive continues to impress, and After Effects RAM previews might be walking the green mile. It's Motion Mondays, and it's party time. But not that kind of party. Are you looking for fresh inspiration? Well, the Inspiration Grid is your new best friend. This incredibly well-organized blog showcases design work across multiple industries from typography to packaging design. What makes it special is how they've categorized everything. If you want typography inspiration, just click and scroll through an endless supply of gorgeous lettering. Here's why this matters for motion designers in 2025. If you caught my interview with Joe Pilger last week, you know that standing out means becoming a one of one, but that's tough if you're only looking at other motion design work. The Inspiration Grid helps you break out of that bubble, serving up inspiration from packaging design, illustration, and other creative fields that can spark fresh ideas for your next project. Whether you're hunting for new techniques, color palettes, or you just want to get those creative juices flowing, this site delivers. The link is in the description, so bookmark it now. Thank me later. Emanuel Colombo just dropped an in-depth post about his 2024 journey through the motion design business landscape, and the numbers are really fascinating. As an example, 70% of his revenue came from returning clients, underlining the importance of building long-term relationships rather than constantly chasing new work. What's really interesting is that despite being based in Italy, most of his projects come from the US market. For international artists wondering how to crack the American market, well, here's your blueprint. Great work and a strong online presence can overcome geographic barriers. The real eye-opener, though, is that while 60% of his work was traditional advertising and video, over 40% was UX, UI, and branding. He's using After Effects for 70% of his projects and Rive for 30%, exactly the kind of shift that I've been talking about for well over a year now. Through his freelance projects and those done through his animation collective Antimatter, he's showing how the future of motion design extends far beyond traditional video work. So check out the post, and the link will be in the description. Circle February 3rd on your calendar. School of Motion's diving into the Blender pool with our newest course, Blender for 3D Artists. We've paired the insanely talented Elijah Sheffield with our creative director, EJ Hassenfratz, to craft the perfect Blender course for motion designers. This is not just another basics course. We're teaching real-world production techniques that you will use daily. If you're coming from Cinema 4D, we'll help you translate that knowledge into Blender speak. You'll learn everything from customizing the interface to modeling, texturing, rendering, and animation. We'll even dip into advanced territory like geometry nodes, toon shading, and the powerful grease pencil system. Speaking of training, our new all-access platform for teams of 3 or more is taking off. You get unlimited access to every course, including the upcoming Blender course, unlimited critique on your work, verified credentials, community access, monthly live streams, and more. So head to our site and hit that team training button to get all the details. Sarofsky just dropped a killer title sequence for Goosebumps Season 2, and here's the kicker. They ditched the computer and went old school. Instead of the usual Houdini sims, they froze black paint and water into custom letter forms and then filmed them melting in reverse. The background was made with spray-painted styrofoam. For the vanishing reveal, they used a simple light-through-glass technique with custom stencils. And the result? Those beautiful organic movements that you just can't fake very easily with computers. The team, of course, did their homework though, mapping everything out digitally first to nail the timing. This piece really brings me back to those classic horror shows from the 80s and early 90s. There's just something special about those practical effects that digital just can't really replicate. So props to Sarofsky for keeping the practical effects flame alive. Check out their detailed case study in the show notes. Our friends at Rive are starting 2025 with a bang. First up, Wix Studio now has native Rive integration joining Webflow and Framer. For artists looking to build a customized portfolio site with interactive elements, Wix offers a much simpler solution than its more complex competitors. They've also launched a clever new feature for text layers. In Rive, you can split text into what's called text runs, essentially breaking your text into distinct chunks that can be controlled separately. This is super useful when you need to update specific words or phrases in real time within an app or website, especially if those words have unique animations. Now these text runs can act as listeners, meaning they can detect user interactions like hovering and clicking. Picture a product description where specific terms light up and trigger animations when users hover over them, or an interactive story where clicking certain words reveals additional content. For motion designers moving into interactive work, this opens up new possibilities for creating engaging user experiences without having to touch code. I have been saying this for over a year now. Rive is the most significant new tool for motion designers in at least a decade. So, want more proof? Check out my recent interview on Rive's blog where I dive into why this matters so much for our industry's future. And if you're ready to jump in, our Rive Academy Volume 1 course is the perfect starting point. Volume 2 is already in production, but Volume 1 will get you solid on all the fundamentals. Kevin Parry's latest stop-motion piece is breaking the internet, and for good reason. This mad genius shot over 400 perfectly planned photos to create a mind-bending room transformation sequence. Even better, he posted a behind-the-scenes look showing how he pulled it off with zero help. If you've ever tried stop-motion, you're probably sweating just thinking about the precision required. Speaking of innovative artists, Clement is creating amazing interactive murals that literally move as viewers engage with them. From rotating two-layer pieces to interactive art books, her work shows how motion principles can exist beyond screens. It's a perfect example of finding inspiration outside of our digital bubble. Big shout out to School of Motion alumni Michael Mueller, whose new reel is absolutely crushing it. His hard work and openness to feedback has led to gigs with heavyweights like Golden Wolf, Nexus, and The Line. And don't sleep on Mohamed Al-Asri, aka Pixrate, who is creating some mind-bending type animations in After Effects. His work features incredibly clever techniques. Think time displacement, overlapping pre-comps, and tasteful roughen edges that combine into mesmerizing typographic animations. If you want to peek under the hood, you can grab his project files at pixrate.co. Each pack includes the After Effects project files for the animation, so you can reverse engineer his madness. Mohamed's talent recently landed him a gig on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, where he developed those subtle but beautiful transition effects for the end credit name cards. The influence of his experimental type work is very clear in those smooth and dynamic animations. Links to all of the work and the artists we feature will be at the links in the description. Well, here's an intriguing story. Artist Buck Woodall is suing Disney for $10 billion. Claiming they lifted his project Bucky to create Moana and its sequel. But here's where it gets fuzzy. There's basically no evidence of the original project online, though it was pitched more than 20 years ago. While Woodall's Ringling College background gives me kind of a soft spot for him, if you're asking for 2.5% of Moana's gross revenue, you better bring receipts. Disney's denied everything, of course, and Woodall's previous lawsuit was dismissed last November. His LinkedIn shows 32 years of freelance work, but his website is defunct, and he's really nowhere to be found on IMDb or anywhere else. While everyone loves rooting for the underdog, I think we should maintain some healthy skepticism until we see actual evidence. And if there is actual evidence, Buck is going to be getting a really big check soon. It's time to celebrate our School of Motion Student of the Week. Michal, one of our all-access students, is crushing it in Design Bootcamp with the Diesel Dance Planet assignment. While using grids for composition might seem like a cheat code, it's actually pretty tricky. One wrong move and your hierarchy goes sideways. But Michal nailed it, creating gorgeous high-contrast art direction with perfect balance. The treatment of stock imagery gives everything a fresh EDM vibe, and the texture work is outstanding. The grid system creates perfect windows into different design elements, all while maintaining strong typography. Absolutely stellar work, Michal. We can't wait to see what's next for you. Hold on to your keyboards. Adobe's making a massive change to After Effects. Principal Product Manager Victoria Neese just announced they're ditching RAM Preview as we know it, introducing a new caching system that's available now in the public beta of After Effects. This is potentially huge. You're no longer constrained by RAM. You can preview any comp length as long as you have the disk space, and your rendered frames will persist as long as they remain on your drive. I tested this on Fraser Davidson's Super Johnny 150K project, by the way, available for dissection as one of our workshops, which is packed with nearly 1,000 layers, trapcode particular instances, and it's a minute long. On my M3 Max MacBook Pro, it seemed to render a bit faster during preview, and I could see the frames being transferred from RAM to disk as it chugged along. Our good friend Ron Stern showed off the primary advantage of this new system in this YouTube video, where he shows how you can now preview an entire 2.5 minute 4K comp at full resolution, whereas before you'd need an absurd amount of RAM to do that. The new system dynamically cycles between disk and RAM, meaning better performance even on older machines. You can try it yourself in the beta under media and disk cache settings, and this is exactly the kind of fundamental improvement that we love seeing from Adobe, making After Effects faster and more efficient. So let us know what you think in the comments after you try it. The AI landscape keeps evolving with some interesting new tools, so here's a quick roundup. Ludus AI for Unreal Engine lets you generate and place objects through text prompts, sort of like having an AI set dresser. If you want to add a telescope to your scene, just describe it and Ludus will create and position it for you. While it's still early days, it hints at how AI might streamline environment building and asset creation. Shaping is another crack at the AI to 3D model challenge, and their results look more promising than most. Unlike other tools that produce mushy, barely usable models, Shapin seems to handle simple objects with decent accuracy. While it's not ready for hero assets and high-end work, it could be useful for quick background elements or rapid prototyping. FreePic, known for their asset marketplace and AI tools, now offers AI-generated sound design for their AI videos. While the audio quality currently sounds like it was recorded underwater with a potato, it's an interesting glimpse at where automated sound design might be heading. The technology clearly needs a ton of work, but the concept of AI-generated sound effects could eventually help with rough cuts and prototypes. The most promising development is Trans Pixar, and yes, that's the name. It comes from Adobe Research, and this open source text-to-video model can generate footage with alpha channels. Think AI-generated debris, dust, and fire effects ready for compositing. The examples show it handling particle effects and atmosphere elements pretty well, and the alpha channel quality is notably better than previous solutions. You can experiment with it now on Hugging Face if you're feeling adventurous. Our friend Wes Slover from Sanctus just launched the Collab Collection podcast, diving into creative collaboration stories. With 2 episodes out and more on the way, it's shaping up to be a fresh take on industry conversation. Now, what I think makes this podcast interesting is Wes's unique perspective. As a sound designer and a musician who's worked with major brands through Sanctus, he brings a different angle to creative discussions. When you're focused on audio, you have to think a little differently about collaboration and the creative process. We've worked with him a bunch at School of Motion, and trust me, he really knows his stuff. And if you're like me and can't get enough industry podcasts, just add this one to your playlist. The link is in the description. And that wraps another packed episode of Motion Mondays. Don't forget, our Blender for 3D Artists course drops February 3rd, and our team training program is exploding with new companies. If you are on a team of 3 or more, reach out and let's talk about leveling up your crew. Here's to an amazing 2025. I'll see you next week.